Good evening, I'm Prasad Michael and you're watching Kini News. Nobody said being a member of parliament would be easy, and Pakatan Harapan lawmakers appear to be struggling with their hectic schedules. That's one of the reasons given for the unsatisfactory attendance by lawmakers at parliament. PKR Chief Whip Johari Abdul told reporters today that fatigue was one of the reasons for the poor attendance by lawmakers at parliament.
You see, lazimnya kita tengok hampir pada sesi bajet ini kita balik lewat, selalunya pukul 10, 10.30. So by the time you sampai rumah pukul 12, you mandi tidur pukul 1, then you say hi to your wife pukul 1.30. So then you wake up, sometimes you are a bit late to the morning session. So fatigue.
Johari said this after the Supply Bill 2020 for the Women, Family and Community Development Ministry was only narrowly passed after opposition lawmakers called for a block vote twice last night. Johari added that another reason for the unsatisfactory attendance was because lawmakers have a lot of programs to attend at the end of the year. Siong heard Johari's excuse for Harapan's poor attendance, and he has two words to describe it: rubbish and nonsense. MCA President Siong isn't too impressed with Johari Abdul's excuse that Harapan lawmakers have been suffering from fatigue, which explains their poor attendance.
So there's no excuse for them to say that, oh, they are new and they do not know the fatigue or whatever. I mean, these are the reasons. I mean, to me it's rubbish, nonsense, right? Don't find excuses. This is something just to cover up their own weaknesses. They don't pay attention or they don't take it seriously. Out of 127 MPs from the government, why can't you get more than 40, 50, 60 at any one time if the opposition want to ambush you?
We said it was the opposition's job to teach the government a lesson by ambushing them over their poor late-night attendance.
So I hope they learn a lesson, and instead of blaming the opposition for not supporting the ministry to give money to the OKU and whatnot, I think this is it's wrong for them to say that. Because you as the government, if you care for the people, you must get as many as possible to attend the parliament session so that you can pass your the budget 2020 as what you plan.
BN and PAS are shaping up to be an effective opposition in parliament, but according to a Harapan Deputy Minister, he knows who they learnt it from. Deputy Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Adipal Maidin, today congratulated the opposition for learning tricks from the Pakatan Harapan's opposition playbook.
I don't want to comment, they can do anything. It's okay, have fun.
But this is not the first time that
no, they imitated us last time we did to them, so it's a sort of revenge for me. It's okay have fun no problem small matter
Don't you really like something?
I don't know, I'm not worried at all. For me it's a fun. Okay, you're right, fun. We are not worried. We are government, you can do anything. But as a position, I think they have to do it.
He also provided other reasons on why it was difficult for lawmakers to remain inside Dewan Rakyat for a long time.
Now we have enough, but sometimes if you become MP, it's not easy for us to stay there for a long time. It's very cold sometimes. This is normal. I think everywhere in the world, you cannot expect MPs to sit there all the time. Nobody, even during the BM's time also, they cannot do that. That's normal. That's why we have a ring, we have a bell for the speaker to ring the bell. That's the idea of having a bell.
Najib is facing a charge of tampering with 1MDB's final audit report, and it was revealed in court today that some of the words removed from the final report were Jolo's name. It's the fifth day of the 1MDB final audit report tampering trial for former Prime Minister Najib Abdul Razak and former CEO of 1MDB, Arul Kanda. Former Auditor General Amrin Buang testified today that during a meeting held on February 24th, 2016, he agreed for the issue of Jolo's attendance for a 1MDB board meeting to be struck out from the final audit report. Amrin also testified that Najib had directed him not to include two conflicting financial statements into 1MDB's final audit report. He said he felt cheated that no police report was lodged over the two conflicting 1MDB financial statements that were left out of the 1MDB final audit report, despite assurances from Najib. If found guilty, Najib can be jailed up to 20 years and fined up to 10,000 ringgit. Arul Kandau stands accused of abetting Najib. If found guilty, he faces the same penalties as Najib. It's not often we get to see Mat Sabu repeat the same thing over and over again. Usually he uses a wide vocabulary when speaking to reporters, but when pressed over Chin Peng's ashes, he didn't have much to say. Defence Minister Muhammad Sabu said he will wait for the Home Ministry's report before commenting on former Communist Party of Malaya Secretary General Chin Peng's ashes being repatriated to Malaysia.
Minta komen berkenaan dengan abu mayat Chin Peng dikatakan
KDN siasat, minta KDN siasat.
Pendirian ni sebagai apa? Sebab
saya tak buat apa pernyataan, sehingga KDN mengeluarkan hasil siasatan.
YB, adakah dia akan menggunakan hati perasaan
sehingga KDN
polis dengan tentera yang selama ni
sehingga KDN mengeluarkan hasil siasatan? Saya akan komen.
Walaupun dia abu mayat, adakah dia akan menggunakan hati
sehingga KDN mengeluarkan hasil siasatan?
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Pak Mat.
Chin Peng had died in exile in Thailand in 2013, but his remains were not allowed to be brought across the border. This was until September 16 this year, when the ashes were brought in from Thailand and quietly scattered in the jungles of the Titiwangsa mountain range and at sea near Lumut. Meanwhile, UMNO Secretary General Anwar Musa said the wishes of the next of kin of Chin Peng should be respected as long as they do not break the law. They say you shouldn't compare apples and oranges, but according to one lawyer, neither should you compare his client's Al-Qaeda and ISIS-related cases to the recent LTTE case. Comparing former SOSMA detainee Yazid Sufat's case to those detained under the same law over their alleged links to the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Elam LTTE is unfair, according to Yazid's lawyers. Yazid, formerly detained over his suspected links with Al-Qaeda and Islamic State, was released and placed on house arrest last week after years in jail. In a statement today, his lawyers, Amir Hamza Arshad, New Sin Yu and Joshua Thay, sought to clarify several misconceptions about the case, stressing that the terrorism charges against Yazid have never been proven. The lawyers disagreed on the use of Yazid's release to argue in favor of the alleged LTTE supporters. Yesterday, Klang MP Charles Santiago decried Yazid's release as a double standard and compared his history of terrorism allegations to those recently charged with being linked to now-defunct Sri Lankan terrorist group LTTE. Coming up next, US President Donald Trump jokes about the threat of impeachment while pardoning a turkey. Europe's poorest country faces devastation, and hope is still alive in Iraq. That and more after this. An impeachment probe is no laughing matter. Well, unless you're Donald Trump, then nothing is off limits.
Butter, I wish you a lot of luck, but I hereby grant you a full and complete pardon.
US President Donald Trump used the high power of his office to pardon Butter, a 21-kilogram turkey, during a US tradition at the White House on Tuesday, where he also cracked jokes about the Democrats' investigation into whether he should be impeached.
Thankfully, bread and butter have been specially raised by the Jacksons to remain calm under any condition, which will be very important because they've already received subpoenas to appear in Adam Schiff's basement on Thursday. It's true. Hundreds of people have. It seems the Democrats are accusing me of being too soft on turkey. But bread and butter, I should note that unlike previous witnesses, you and I have actually met.
Both Butter and his alternate bread escaped the fate of becoming the main course of a Thanksgiving feast and were sent to a special reserve in Virginia. Jokes aside, the threat of impeachment may be looming larger each day, with Democrats expected to release a crucial report after Thanksgiving. The House of Representatives Intelligence Committee chairperson Adam Schiff is leading the inquiry into whether Trump should be impeached for pressing Ukraine to investigate a political rival of his. The poorest country in Europe has been hit by the most powerful earthquake in decades. At least 21 people were killed when the most powerful earthquake to strike Albania in decades shook the capital, Tirana, and the country's west and north on Tuesday, tearing down buildings and burying residents under rubble.
When the quake hit, the lights went out. We couldn't see anything. Everything fell apart and crumbled.
Residents, some carrying babies, fled apartment buildings in Tirana and western port of Jures after the 6.4 magnitude quake struck shortly before 4 a.m. The Balkan country was jolted by 250 aftershocks after the main tremor. The quake was centered 30 kilometers west of Tirana, the US Geological Survey said, and was also felt across the Balkans and in the southern Italian region of Puglia across the Adriatic Sea from Albania. Albania is the poorest country in Europe, with per capita income a quarter of the European Union average, according to the International Monetary Fund. Hundreds have been killed in Iraq since demonstrations started in October, but hope has been reignited with a wall of wishes. The small white poster note was stuck to the wall amid thousands of other sticky squares, each bearing a wish, a comment or a prayer for the future of Iraq. Just off Baghdad's Tahrir Square, ground zero for a protest movement that remains unbowed despite the deaths of hundreds of demonstrators in a government crackdown, protesters have set up a wall of wishes.
We formed a team with a group of youth, and we worked with the spirit of one team as active as bees in a beehive. And we made that achievement.
Activists set up the wall at an abandoned public bathroom. They now plan to compile the wishes into a book.
Before, we did not have a future and no one would protest because everyone was scared. Now we're all gathered at Tahrir Square.
The anti-government protesters accuse the government of corruption and squandering the national wealth. At least 339 people have been killed since the demonstrations began in October. Most of the victims have been unarmed protesters shot with live ammunition.
Here are several of the news highlights from today. And that is all from me today. For more stories, you can go to KiniTV.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube and Facebook for the latest news updates. I'm Prasad Michael. Thank you for watching. But before we go, we leave you with a brief look into extreme living conditions of members of a transfer station in Antarctica.